Episode 5, sculpture, sculpture, sculpture. This is the thing, the beginning of the thing that you are going to win if you enter the contest. We got a lot of work to do covering this guy with clay, but this is it. This is the deal right here. So let's get to it. Boom. Last week, we released this guy from his block of styrofoam, right? And we did that on the CNC machine. And you might say, man, that looks just like the clay lion, right? This is 1/2 the size of the sculpture that we're making here, right? But there's a lot of detail that was lost in the process. And the reason is because of the process. This is the bit that we used for the final cut of this guy. And it actually is remarkably good at capturing detail for how big this tip is. But if you'll see all of these areas where on the real sculpture, this would go to 0. So if you look, if this would be a V, right? And here is 0. It would go to nothing, but it can't because of this 1/4 inch tool, right? So when this tool is tracing along here, 1/4 inch is the smallest it can go. So basically everywhere where I've made a black Sharpie line here, I need to carve some foam out so we can stick some clay in there. This is a hot knife. It's a spectacularly amazing tool. It's slightly sharp, but it doesn't need to be sharp because it's just going to get really hot. And the styrofoam has a pretty low melting point. And so we're just going to kind of cut and melt all this foam out of the way. I'm always thinking about the process in my head as I'm doing it. And right, this is the first time I've ever made a epoxy clay sculpture over foam to give away to somebody. I was laying in bed last night thinking about this sculpture is going to go live in your house. You, the person who's going to win. You right there, I see you. Because of that, we don't want a styrofoam bottom, right? We don't want this in your house. And I also don't want to cover it with epoxy clay. I decided we're going to put a piece of metal on here. We're going to cut this 13-inch square out of this piece of scrap. We're going to epoxy it onto the bottom, and then we're going to fold it into the sculpture so that we can put some felt on it so that when you put it on your bookshelf, it will not scratch the bookshelf. If this was going in front of a university and we were going to cast it in bronze, I would be covering this styrofoam with oil-based clay, which is the green stuff that you see on all these sculptures over here. But for this guy, this is actually the sculpture that you're going to win. And so that clay, the oil-based clay, wouldn't work in your house. It would just get destroyed. So we need to make this out of a durable clay that we can patina and make look awesome. And so to do that, we're going to use epoxy clay. That presents some really unique challenges because we're going to mix up epoxy clay in like chunks of the size of a tennis ball, and then we're going to have to put that clay on in exactly the way we want it, with exactly the texture we want it, and we have to get that done in 30 minutes or less because the epoxy clay hardens. Epoxies are typically 2-part mixtures. A chemical reaction occurs when you mix them together. And when we mix these together, like we're mixing up pasta, and it is a lot like mixing up pasta, the chemical reaction starts happening. The chemical reaction will continue for the next 24 hours, but the important part of the chemical reaction, when it's workable, is like the first 45 minutes, and that's why it's time limited. And so when I'm working with oil-based clay, I can put a little bit of clay on in a lump and then leave it for a few weeks and then decide what I want the texture to be. But on this guy, if I want to put this chunk of hair on, then it has to be sculpted, the volume shaped, and the texture put on all in 30 minutes. And if I don't do that, then we got to chip it off and start over. So a little bit of different process. I'm a little nervous about it, but only in the best way. The nerves that are like, ooh, something awesome's about to happen. I mean, this is the first lump of clay, right? I love the texture of the bighorn sheep. When given the opportunity, I like to do that, which basically is just the chunk method. I mean, I don't even know what to call it, right? But it's just a little smeared on chunk, and where the texture really starts to define the shape. And so this epoxy clay is pretty cool because it's very sticky. It sticks to everything. But if you use a little bit of water, it acts as like a little release, and you can manipulate it. Only 100 hours more to go. Cue the time lapse. in our culture, we feel like we're surrounded by geniuses. This guy's a genius, that guy's a genius. But the ancient Greeks thought of it in a way that I feel like is much more productive. Creation is like a divine act. The ancient Greeks thought that if you did the work, if you labored at your craft, occasionally the genius would show up and help you create something that was beyond your current ability. That changes everything, because the way we think about it, either you are a genius or you aren't a genius. And so then people who do something amazing spend a whole bunch of time fretting about, oh God, what if I never do anything amazing again? Which is exactly what you can't control. All you can control is how hard you work at the craft. I think it's just so poetic to think if you work hard enough and you get a little bit lucky, sometimes a genius shows up and you make something that's freaking spectacular. If you've ever listened to Seth Godin, he says that there's no such thing as writer's block, and you can apply writer's block to whatever. There's no such thing as sculptor's block or painter's block or any creative's block. It's just an overdeveloped edit button. You're too afraid of putting your bad ideas out into the world. So he says, you don't think you have any good ideas? Well, show me all your bad ideas. Nobody who has writer's block has 50,000 pages full of bad ideas. I guarantee you, if you're like, okay, I'm just going to work on all these bad ideas until a good one shows up, eventually a good one shows up, and sooner rather than later. Let's just try. We're going to just experiment with some textures on this hair. It's just very different than the oil-based clay, because the oil-based clay, I can put it all on, heat it up, move it all around whenever I want. But this, remember, I only have 45 minutes at the most. So I have a whole bunch of brushes, and I'm not sure what texture is going to be, which one's going to be the right one. So we're just going to try something. So that's not terrible. I can see how that could become something. I like this texture. If I get this tool wet and get that wet, I can see how I can do what I like to do, which is just pull those highlights back into it, right? I need some deeper shadows in there. That's just too chunky. And so I feel like I need something like this. Ooh, this might work. Just to get some of those deeper lines. And then if I come back over it with the thin brush, now see how that kind of breaks that whole mass up? That's going to be way more interesting to look at. It's all unknowns. And sometimes that means you have to act with incomplete information. And when you act with incomplete information, sometimes you have to redo things you've already done. And I have decided that I don't like this. I've decided I don't like it enough that I'm going to take it off. But I've never done that, and so it's all unknowns. I think this is going to work, but I don't know. You ready to find out? Let's do it. Let's ruin this thing. Oh, this is going to be the last piece of clay. I mean, I've still got to texture all this clay, but that right there, this one, if you were wondering, is the last piece of clay. Okay, I'm gonna call him done. Let's just give him a look real quick. I think he might be done. Finished. That's it for episode 5. He is done. I mean, sculpturally, he's done. Basically, you saw me put the first piece of clay on, and then you just saw me put the last piece of clay on like 5 minutes ago. I finished his goatee. Lots of work on the textures. I had to tear off this part of the coat and redo it. I'm really happy with the texture on the coat right now. It's gonna look awesome in the patina. The hair is really, really cool. Here, let me show you the back real quick. I mean, gosh dang it, if that is an unruly mane, I really love it. And I really like a lot how the hair blends into his face and becomes the fuzz. So there's lots of really cool things in this episode. Lots of time lapse. I mean, it was a lot of sculpture. Now, you may look at this and think that's a huge sculpture. But in this studio, when we're surrounded by 8-foot tall things, this guy is actually not that big. He's just, medium small. But in your house, if you enter the contest and if you win this guy, he is going to dominate the landscape. And every single one of the people who comes into your house is going to be like, whoa, where'd you get that thing? So register for the contest. That information is in the details below. That's it. I hope you have a spectacular week. Hoodie and I are having so much fun making these videos. We actually are already talking about all the next stuff we're going to do. And like, there's a lot of, we could do that. So it's exciting and fun. I really appreciate you being here. If you have any questions or comments, put that in the comments, and then I'll comment in the comments, and we can have a little party in the comments. That's it. We'll see you in the next episode, episode 6 for the patina. Talk to you later.